Yeah.
Hey Jen, Tony here. So yeah, we just got done talking to you are the mainstream right now. So over 200 viewers watching this right now. And so while we troubleshoot to get you you the ability to push the PDF,
Or I
what?
could just email it to somebody at AFWERX.
Yeah. Okay, Mike has those permissions, and so Mike should be able to push it. But uh, we were just talking, you sent me that text, you have over 50 unique interactions. And
Yeah,
so,
it's so
yeah,
cool.
could you talk a little bit about, what you've seen and, how those interactions have happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about why we even got to this point, right? A lot of what BMNT does is just simply trying to help our government customers solve their problems faster. And sometimes that journey involves introducing them to innovative small businesses like these SBIR awardees. And what we learned as a phase two alumnus through AFWERX in working with different Air Force Spark cells and Air Force bases was that it's a really confusing landscape, both pre and post SBIR award. And when we attended the Collider in August, also at Capital Factory, and we discovered that it felt a little bit overwhelming to know how to navigate that expo floor. You know what your sort of airman area of expertise is, but you don't even know where to start with these booths. And so we ran a breakout in which we thought it would be valuable to teach a skill we call curation, so that airmen would be able to explain their problems really crisply and concisely. And once we did that, we had actually sort of built a very early stage matching tool. And so we had the government problem owners type their problem statement in, and then we returned to them the names of 3 to 5 companies and their actual booth numbers on the floor. And we found that that just lowered the threat of walking around and generating useful conversations more quickly. And so, as you know, Tony, this time around, we wanted to offer that same value, but we wanted to open it up to every government participant and not just those who were coming to one of our breakouts. And so, we asked you if we could try this with a chatbot so that everyone who wanted to opt in could hit up our bot and have a quick conversation in 90% of the time when it's not having a bug. And then we would use that and run it against, some similar company data that we were extracting, and then return sort of a top 3 list for folks to go and reach out to. So initially, we set out to do this only with the attendees, the registrants and companies that were set to attend. But when coronavirus happened, you and I sort of talked about, well, we could actually pivot this to all SBIR awardees, and here we are. And so in terms of how we're seeing the data flow in and sort of the types of information that we're extracting both from government and companies, I'm going to turn that over to Mike because he's the genius behind all of this that has built it and is working real time to ensure that the results that we send out have been QC'd. So Mike, over to you.
Yeah, so I guess I'll try to push the slides here. I don't see that I have access to present. Is that something you guys could unlock for me again? Or not? We can do it later. That's okay. So yeah, we'll push our. We only have a couple slides to talk through, but in the meantime, what I really want to hit on is that we've been the way that we ask the questions and the type of information we're trying to get out of. We call them problem owners, right? The people who tell us about what their problems are. They're looking for a solution. We ask very specific questions, and those are tuned to try to match up to what we ask the companies that have the solutions, the solution providers, right? And the whole point is that if we ask someone, a problem owner, to tell me about who are the people that are impacted by this problem, we'll ask a similar question on the company side. And the idea is we'll get similar sorts of answers that'll make it easier for us to pair them up. And the same sort of thing goes about the problem you have. And for a while, we can ask about processes. That's another good way for us to find out if what are the processes associated with the problem, and then ideally solutions interact with similar processes. So it helps us figure out how to match these two together. One really key point here is that we spend a lot of time curating problems to understand what the core problem is, and then what are appropriate solutions. And we're not really able to do that because it's a chatbot interface. It's really more of just the initial problem, and we kind of give our best guess as to what the solutions are. Ideally, we spend a lot more time figuring out with the problem owner what's really going on with their problem, and the solutions become much more accurate. So at this point, the beginning phase, it's really just more of a, here's some people to talk to. You've got a target of opportunity at this event, get some value out of it. We understand that like it's not going to be, at least right now, there's some there's not as much accuracy as there could be because we just don't know enough about the problem. And quite frankly, neither does the problem owner, right? They're still learning about it themselves. So that's all good. Let's see, the things that we've done in the past that have kind of helped us figure out how to do this is we've actually been collecting data on problems for a number of years. And we've been using it internally to help us, as Jen kind of mentioned, kickstart a project with a government client. They come in with a problem. We can learn from other problems that are similar, how we address those, what types of solutions, what types of roadblocks came up. And it allows us to take some shortcuts and get them to a better outcome much faster. But in doing that, we learned a lot about what does it take to collect problem data that's useful later, what types of questions, what are really the important pieces. And that allowed us to optimize our search quite a bit so that, when data comes in, right, you guys give us a problem, it goes into our back end, we do some cleaning of it computationally, right? The system cleans it up a little bit and builds it into a nice search that goes through our back end, through our bot, that really like pulls out from our database the companies from the SBIR AFWERX companies, the companies that look to be the highest quality. And then we have a person, right, myself, we've got a couple other analysts that help us go through and just QC those to make sure we're only passing you guys true positives as best as we can, right? We don't want to send you 10 companies and have 5 of them be just totally in your, annoying sort of stuff that's not helpful. We try to give you only the ones that are going to be something you're going to want to pay attention to. And then we push that out. And what's cool about that process is we're getting training data. We're getting labeled training data because we now have a problem that you guys gave us. We know a bit about what's causing the issues. And our humans have said, these are the actual solutions that we believe to be correct. So I can now use that data later and start to like build a feedback loop into my analytic process so that I'll be able to suggest even better solutions in the future. So this will just only become more accurate over time is really kind of the major takeaway there. Let's see.
Mike, so this is Tony here. So you have presenter rights again, and if there's something that you want to push out to the group, you should be able to do it now.
Awesome. Yeah. Let me work on getting that up. Let's see.
While you're doing it, Mike, I just want to on the YouTube stream. There's been a couple companies that have asked, or a couple people on the stream that says, "What's the name and contact information for the person currently speaking?" And so I don't know if you or Jen just want to just say real quick, how would they get in contact with you if they're interested in what you guys are doing?
So Mike, I'll take that one just because my last name is way simpler.
Exactly.
I can forward them along. So just hit me up. It's JROY@BMNT.com. That's JROY@BMNT.com.
Saying you have about 50 unique interactions there, and so is there any initial feedback on those interactions, or are you guys still going through the data?
When you say feedback, we mean like what we found from looking at the problems? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Oh, right. No, honestly, we've just been QCing the results and pushing them out. I think tomorrow and next week we'll go through and provide back to you, Tony, some kind of more meta-analysis of the types of problems we're seeing, and like which companies are getting more or less hits, that kind of stuff. We can certainly provide that to you. That shouldn't be a problem. We haven't done any of that right now. Just keeping an eye on the bottom.
Yeah. And I know this is like real-time execution, and so I know your team's busy just delivering great solutions. And so just one more time for those out in the YouTube world, the number if you want to interact with the bot, and so this is structured for government only right now, is 202-900-5005. Again, you can text 202-900-5005, and you can start the text message chain with text Jen what you ate for lunch.
Yeah.
I can't wait. And I saw a couple, things float in from companies on the live chat on the main page, and we absolutely in the future want to make this company to government as well, but we're very sensitive to sort of the need for government to opt into that, and so it's something we'd like to work as part of our dev roadmap. It's probably not something this bot is going to do in the next week or two. But we do kind of want to, brainstorm that with you, Tony, going forward on how we make this valuable to companies as well, because this event is intended to be a two-way event, right? So this was an early prototype, but we definitely are looking to do that in the future.
Great, that's awesome.
And Tony, I just put into the chat for this session, I just put in the short URL that's also associated with this. So if you're having a hard time with SMS or you're not with your mobile device, you can go to this URL. It just takes you to a Google form to basically answer the same sort of questions. And you'll get a response just as quickly as if you went through the text bot as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. And then Mike, well, actually, you could work through your presentation right now, but after you're done, I got some questions.
Sure. Dan, do you want me to push the slides for you?
Yeah, why don't we take Tony's questions first, and happy to go over that.
Definitely. Yeah.
So, you've seen, 50 interactions with the bot. And so obviously there's a series of questions that users need to input into it in order to get information back. Is there any best practices that you want to share to everybody listening about how to get the best results from, the platform that you've created?
Sorry. Yeah, I'll take that for sure. Yeah, generally the best practice is to give us as much of a description as you can. Sometimes we'll get responses that are things like cybersecurity is the problem that I have, right? And like that doesn't. I can go through and we'll get a list of cybersecurity companies back from our service on that, and we can pick them out, give you some really interesting ones when we're QCing it. But the reality is, there's probably 20 cybersecurity companies this in my database here from all the cyber ones that we've received from Tony, right? And it's just not, it's okay, but it's not going to get you any more granular matches than that. You'll just get a bunch of cybersecurity companies. Ideally, we know a little bit more about what you're actually trying to solve and what's the underlying problem. That'll just allow us to suggest the one or two cybersecurity companies that are very relevant to what you need. Maybe it's a comms thing. Maybe you're trying to set up a new network that you want to defend. Maybe you've got we had a really good one about weapon systems cybersecurity, right? There was a couple of companies that are very focused on that. And so that just allows us to provide you more custom results. So more text, generally better.
And then, so do you have an example of that, Mike? You just maybe how about this? So for those that haven't interacted with the bot, what types of questions are being asked from the bot? So what can they expect, after they tell Jen, what they had for lunch? What's the next things that they're going to get as in the text chain?
Yeah, so the bot's basically just going to ask you to describe your problem, right? The problem that you're trying to solve for your organization. It asks you to use one or two sentences at least to do that. So again, that kind of forcing yourself to describe it a little bit is a helpful way to, even if you think that it's a very simple problem, just kind of try to write more than one sentence, right? And that usually kind of brings out a little bit more specificity, which is really good. After that, we ask you about the solution. And now, like from a BMNT perspective, this is kind of like you don't really know the problem yet, right? But we ask you to kind of guess at what the solution would be, because it helps us. We want to provide you with companies that are interesting to you, and in this case, you might have something very specific that you want to see. So we'll try to match up a company based on the solution that you're interested in addition to the problem. And then after that, we have some questions that are designed to try to get you to think a little bit more about your problem, maybe from a different perspective or in a little more depth. So we're just asking things like how do you think your solution is going to solve this problem, right? Just asking you to kind of talk through and tell us what you think is going to happen when you get this solution, and maybe what effect it will have. And that's going to get us just more description of that problem and how it kind of manifests. Because like I said earlier, there's a lot of cybersecurity problems. But if you think you're going to be using a cybersecurity product in a way that's maybe only has to deal with wireless networks, like the more I know about that, the more I can fine tune those results again The bot will pick up on the fact that you're talking about wireless networks versus wired networks, and it'll customize the results as such. And then at the end, we ask about the beneficiaries. These are people who are experiencing the problem. These are users or someone who really feels the pain. They're the person who, when something goes wrong with this problem, they're the ones who are searching for the solution because they're really unhappy, right? And so we want to know who these people are, not names of people, but the roles, the type of person. And the more we know about that, the more we can again start to pick solutions that address the specific type of person. Because we've asked the solution providers, the companies, the same sort of question here of, what type of people, what roles would interact with your product. And that way, there's again, going back to cybersecurity, there's certain cybersecurity products that are really good for a network analyst or a cyber intrusion analyst. They're going to be the person who's trying to find the attack and do the analysis to write up a mitigation report of some sort. But then there's also cybersecurity products that are far more in the physical world. These are things that are maybe tracking assets or looking for tamper on devices, other sorts of things. That might be done more by like a warehouse or a hardware manager. Again, depending upon the roles, we can tune the products to the solution even better. So as specific as you can get on the types of people that are involved with your problem, it's just going to improve the results that we get. And we've got a lot of companies. I'm not sure I have the actual count, but I believe we're at around 400 companies in our database from this. So there's a lot of opportunity to find the specific few that are really the right match, which is just going to make it easier for you to make a high quality connection and make some progress on that problem, which is of course where we want to be, right? We want to get you very targeted data so you can not waste your time talking to companies that just don't move the needle for you.
And even though that sounds like a ton of information, I promise that filling in the bot, interacting with this texting interface is 10 minutes or less.
That's correct, Jen. I talk a lot, but in reality, yes, we found that very few people go over 10 minutes. And if they do, it's because they're writing novels, which you don't have to write a novel.
So Mike, you've simplified it for the user, which is really compelling. But maybe you could take 2-3 minutes and just geek out, like what's actually going on underneath the hood. Is there gerbils underneath it? Maybe you could talk and explain some of the AI fundamentals that which this bot is using.
Yeah, sure. So there's very few gerbils. We only have a couple. They do a lot of the work though. No, so we've for the kind of like the guts of how this thing works, right? Is we're bringing all that text in and we're doing some natural language processing on it to figure out what are the specific components of what was written that are kind of like high level topics, right? So this is doing it's the sort of thing where we pull out these higher level themes and topics that we can then use. We've done the same thing on the company side, on the solution side. We have equally large descriptions of the solutions of the products. So once we have kind of the topics on both those sides, the machine is able to try to link those two together. It's then also doing some fuzzy keyword matching and some and similarity searching. Sorry. So it's kind of, think of it as like you take every word and you permute it through a thesaurus, right? So every, money could be equal to currency, right? And they're not always perfect matches, but it's just trying to increase the chance that if someone used one word to describe something like an airframe versus an aircraft versus an airplane, those are all talking basically about the same thing, and they should probably all collapse, be the same sort of match. So we're doing both of those sets of analyses on the data that we get in and the data that we have in our database. And then the machine can start to do matches. It basically puts a score together and it says, these have the most similarity between the two elements, and the highest scores are going up, right? So I guess, does that make sense? Is that the level you're looking for, Tony?
Hey Mike, so they are transitioning to another room, so Tony actually just left.
Okay.
I do have a question that came in from the audience, if you guys are ready to answer those.
By all means, yeah.
The first one is, what technique is used to match problem and solution, and how accurate is the bot?
I think I feel like I just answered the first part. So how accurate is the bot? Right now, so when we started developing this for this event, I think I'm not sure, I don't know if we kept numbers on the accuracy, but we've been tweaking it a lot over the past few weeks to basically we've identified that there's certain components of the answers that people provide about their problem that are more descriptive of the actual problem than other pieces. So we've been playing around with basically tuning the bot to improve, basically focus on more sections of a response, and actually playing around with different questions. Quite frankly, we've changed the questions up a bit to increase that accuracy level as well. So at this point, I mean, I don't have, we're running it live right now, right? So I don't have the specific numbers, but I can tell you that the QC levels, right, are dropping drastically through this event. Like we've been when we were doing our initial testing, we had to do some pretty heavy QCing to pick out the responses that were most relevant. And at this point, it's pretty lightweight. You know, we're asking the bot to give us, I think it's like 10 to 25 companies, and then we pick like 3 or 4 or less, depending upon relevancy, that are the best. And that process has gotten much faster because the bot's getting more and more accurate, and the better ones are showing up in the very top of that response group.
How would the SPIR know that they are potentially matched?
Yeah, right now they don't. And again, like Jen kind of referenced, this is a sensitivity thing. We just because we didn't, I don't think we really had the time with Tony to figure out the right way to do company to government matching. Right now, what happens is the government employee gets a text message and it says, here's a couple companies that we think are relevant to your problem. Here's the name of the company, the website, a POC name, their role. So it'll say like they're the CEO or sales lead, whatever it is. And then it gives their email address. And it's kind of incumbent upon the government employee to reach out to the company. But I absolutely can see in the future having a way. We've actually had some requests as well to go the other direction, and there's no reason that we couldn't do that. The thing to think about there is like that's something that we could potentially do after an event, because we have to gather all the problems first before we can tell you where your solutions apply, right? But that's something that we could potentially do, yeah. And it makes sense for this type of an event, as Jen referenced earlier. It is a bi-directional event, so makes sense.
The next question is, are the inputs read by a human or a computer?
By a human or by a machine? Yeah, the machine takes them in and does all the searching, all the matching, right? And then the people are going through the company, so they'll briefly like reference the problem, but they're not really reading. They're just trying to make sure they have the right topic area so that they can remove the ones that are not relevant and leave the companies, the solutions that are the most relevant.
Mike, I'll jump in here.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, as the person who sort of signed up to do this, I really wanted to ensure that we were giving high quality matches. And so that human interaction level is unnecessary, but I sort of forced it in so that we knew that what we were providing back was going to be relevant data. So in the future, as this gets better and better, that layer can ostensibly be removed. But for this, again, I just wanted to make sure that it was a no-fail mission.
Yeah, and quite frankly, it gets us that really high quality data that I was talking about earlier, right? Labeled training data just allows us to improve that machine process. It's a critical element right now.
And then there's actually like 3 parts to that previous question. So the next one is received 2 under phase 1 SBIR and 1 under phase 2. What do the phases mean with regard to the pairing?
So
Right,
I'll
good
say that
question.
one as well, Mike, if you don't mind. So the way the collider was originally set up was phase 1 companies would be on the floor on certain days, and phase 2 companies would be on the floor on a different day. And so we wanted a way to return results in a lightweight way to the requester, the government problem owner, so that they understood inherently that they could find those companies on the floor on the days that matched the different phases. With regard to what an actual phase 1 definition is and what a phase 2 definition is, that's way better answered by the AFWERX website.
And then the last part of this question is, finally, if companies paired do not fit, should the user resubmit?
If they had no matches, was that the question?
If the matches aren't a fit, should the user
Not a fit. Yeah, definitely, right? Like resubmit and try to explain the problem with just more depth, more clarity, right? Like if you gave a relatively short description of your problem, just try to expand it. If you think that there's some keywords that maybe took it the wrong way, try adding more, just description of what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Some of the problems that we get are pretty vague, and because, like I said, we've got a lot of companies, it's going to pick like the top cybersecurity companies to send them to you, and if they happen to not be what you're looking for, just try to describe it a little bit better and see if we can pick out the right ones. Then, yeah.
And the next question is, how do companies edit it / update the info that they provide on the Google Forms?
Right, perfect. So Tony sent out a note to all the companies, like Tuesday, Monday, something like that.
It's 4 a.m. Tuesday morning.
Right, because he never sleeps apparently. So that was basically a request, right, for that description data that we then used for this bot. So I don't know what the plan is for like moving forward with that. Jen, do you have any thoughts on how like this would be, continued to update and use in the future?
I mean, for this specific instance, I'd like to keep it live for at least, a couple business days past the event. In terms of updating company data, I think at this point that's going to have to be handled case by case. So, I would encourage the companies to reach out to me via email and see if we can handle that. But in the future, I think that's something we'll definitely need to look at. It is a way to refresh company data. The initial company data we took from AFWERX, and that was for the 150 companies that were registered to attend. All the rest of the company data, the other 250 companies that are loaded in there, that was all provided by the companies themselves. And so I think it would be probably the 150 that are wanting to sort of update and modify. And obviously we want to return the most accurate results, but.
And actually, like interestingly, we did get updates from across the board. So there were some of the companies that had already submitted descriptions, and we added all those in, right? So, yeah, everyone had equal opportunity. I think whether or not they saw it, I don't know, right? Yeah.
At this point, though, I think what we want to express to people is that this was created specifically for this event. And it's intended to be useful for this audience. I'm not sure how long it will remain sort of live. It's certainly not into perpetuity because there's definitely a half-life of sort of value going forward, and also just recency bias people will forget to even hit it up, and so there may not be a perfect way for companies to update, but I would say at this point, if you're really upset with how your company is reflected or you feel like you submitted inadequate information, hit me up. Maybe there's a way we can, quickly update your data.
And then, what would be the best way to contact you, Jen?
So I've posted my email a couple of times today on the live chat on the main YouTube channel, but I'm just JROY@BMNT.com. So that's JRoy@BMNT.com.
And then we have 2 people that are asking that what should they do if they have not heard back after submitting?
Well, I'm not QCing right now, so if they've submitted like basically during this talk, then I'll go through and check theirs right afterwards and release them. If that's not the case, just have them. I think. Well, let's give them the. Do you want to use the backup number, Jen, for this?
Yeah, we have sort of a virtual help desk number. Just don't have it memorized, and I'm looking for it right now.
I have it right now. Yeah.
Okay.
So just send a text message to 202-681-8099, and we'll post that in the message, the messaging for this as well.
Okay. And then another similar question is that can they confirm that their Google form was included? They submitted earlier this week and just wanted to confirm inclusion?
They can send us a, I guess maybe Jen have them email you. But we've included we put all the companies in. I don't know that there weren't any that were removed. But if they want to just confirm, I mean, send a message to Jen and we'll just check the database for you.
Mike, is there a time after which we stopped pulling from that Google sheet?
It was pretty late. I mean, the cutoff was 2 p.m. Eastern yesterday, and we pulled it at like 5 o'clock in the evening. So we tried to keep it open extra long. Good point, Jen.
Okay. Another question is, how do we check the Collider bot or know if we were matched? Is there a portal?
Is that, I'm assuming that's from a company? Okay, yeah, and right now they just can't. You know, we've covered this a few times. We understand that the collider is intended to be bidirectional, right? It's supposed to have as much value for the companies as for the government attendees, excuse me. But at this time, the bot is government only opt-in, and in order to sort of preserve government sensitivity and sort of, you know, not flooding a government member with company solicitations, we've kept it one directional. And so it's absolutely something we're talking to Tony about. If there's a way that we can even take some of the results and start to get government opt-in so that we can share those with the companies. But at this time, it's just not a service that it offers. It's definitely on the dev roadmap. But we really want to sort of preserve the government's right not to be contacted en masse, first and foremost.
I think that's all the questions that came in so far.
Okay, great. So I think it would be awesome, Mike, if you could push the slides, and then Dan, as our head of product development, if you just want to give a quick snapshot of how this fits in sort of with our larger tech strategy and where we're going. And then that will give some time also for any other questions to flow in. And stop us at any point if you're starting to see a lot of questions flow in, and we'll certainly pause.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Jen. Yeah, Mike, if you just want to jump to the, I think it's the third screen in that deck. Because I think both of you have kind of covered a lot of this, but just thought sometimes a visual is more helpful, especially when talking about something that's experimental and a little complex. So as Mike described earlier, this is the basic flow that we're using for the chatbot. And important to note, and Tony, as you're aware, and probably some others within AFWERX, we've been working on a product called Aurora for quite some time now. And the original impetus for that was to essentially to do this problem solution matching at a very, very large scale. So kind of building on BMNT's legacy and the years of work we've been doing and kind of perfecting our problem curation practice and all the other work that we're doing. We needed something to kind of help us scale beyond just the people that we have on our team. And essentially I've been working in the background building this platform to help do that. And it's a really exciting time for us because the chatbot is one of the first public facing applications that we've built on top of this platform that leverages a lot of the thinking that went into that. So as Mike mentioned, we've got an API that we have the chatbot plugged into. We have a QC team that's checking that stuff in real time, but a lot of the heavy lifting and that matching activity is being done by the platform itself. So it's really cool for us to see it in action, and true to form. This is very much a live MVP or minimum viable product for us. And the key thing for us here is to be able to get feedback from this very large and public facing experiment, and find out what worked and what didn't work. And as Jen kind of alluded to, we have a lot of really interesting things or really interesting directions that we can take this moving forward, right? When it comes to thinking about how we introduce a more bi-directional aspect, how do we provide value to newly awarded SBIR companies, right? To give them an indication of, hey, here are all the different avenues you can go down, and start to explore that with them, right? Building value for the SBIR program, but also returning value back to our existing government customers. So this is kind of just a quick snapshot of the flow. Happy to chat about any details of work that we're doing on the platform or the tool, or Tony, if anything's come in while I've been talking, happy to field any questions.
We have two questions that came in. The first one is, can we still put the Google Doc to opt-in?
Jen, do you
Yeah, so I think this is something we have to sort of determine. It's can we continue to load new companies?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I think the answer is yes, but
Yeah.
they can't expect it to be instantaneously loaded. It takes us some time to scrape the Google sheet that AFWERX shared with us and load that company data. But I would like to keep the bot live for at least several business days following the event. So I think, yeah, I mean, the more data we can get, the better. So go ahead and push it, and we'll try and do at least one more refresh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jen, that's not a problem. We can do it.
We are a phase 1 award winner with a platform that could help enhance Collider robot or bot and be a solution on an ongoing basis. Are you guys open to collaborating?
Always. Yeah, Mike, if you go to just flip up the last slide in there. Yeah, just feel free to shoot me an email. QR code goes to the LinkedIn page, but yeah, feel free to reach out. That we'd love to chat.
So Mike, how long did it take you to build this?
How long did it take to? I mean, so I would say that we've been building this for quite some time. Just because like we've been working on the Aurora backend. How long has it been, Dan?
We're about 8 months in now.
Right. So all that backend work allowed me to build this chatbot interface and kind of stitch things together in about, I think, 2 weeks, right? Which wasn't a lot of work. One, because we had that backend database with all like the logic and the basically the interface to do all the query work, right? The really hard part of this is making that matchmaking, the intelligence to put problems together with solutions. Stitching together the rest of it was, it's just a lot of wiring and piping and that kind of stuff, right? Digital wiring, which just takes time, right? But yeah, not too bad to put together. It was a fun project. I'm really looking forward to taking this thing to the next level. That's where it's going to get real fun.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've talked about, not just going company to government, which I know there's a huge demand signal for, and we're hearing it, trust me. But we also think that there's an opportunity here to connect like problem owners across the government. And I think that could be really compelling, right? Because if you find out that somebody at another base is working on the exact same problem that you are, and so similar, it just sort of deduplicates expenditure and effort across the Air Force writ large. And so that is an area that I think we find incredibly compelling as we continue to support AFWERX into the future.
Yeah, I mean, Jen, you've made a really good point, which is the system's ability to match similar things together. They can be problems that are similar. They can be a problem that finds a similar solution. It doesn't really. It's agnostic to solution or problem in this case. It can certainly match either direction or within a group like that. Definitely not a problem.
And then we have a last question that just came in. You mentioned curation before. What does it mean to curate your problem, and how can we learn to do this better to communicate our problem more clearly?
Problem curation is my personal favorite thing that BMNT does because it's like putting a puzzle together, which sounds really lame, and I get that. But what it is, at its core, curation is effectively just rigorously assessing and prioritizing problems. But we do that through a series of steps that allows a customer to better understand what is the actual root cause of the problem they're trying to solve. And so we take them through sort of a series of questions that's designed to sort of unlock who is it that's actually going to benefit if this problem is solved? Who would give you a big hug if this problem were solved? What's the desired outcome? What are they actually trying to get to? And what's the pain point in between there that's preventing them from reaching that desired outcome? And so, what we try to do through problem curation, which is just fancy for, sort of problem simplification, really, is help the user communicate their problem in one sentence in a way that any potential solution provider can quickly and crisply understand what it is they are after. We find that this really helps baseline conversation among a diverse group of stakeholders when you go out and you want to start talking about your problem. If you have this sort of opening line, it really helps you to control the narrative. And again, baseline understanding around the most simple tenets of the problem. Who needs it solved? What are they looking for? And what is the pain point in between that's blocking them? And so if you're interested in learning more about that, or understanding what it is that problem curation is in more detail, just email me. And we'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. Because like I said, it is the foundation of everything we do at BMNT. We are problem-driven innovators. We are not solution-driven. We really want to understand the problem we're trying to solve instead of throw money at something that sounds really sophisticated and cool, but ultimately sits on a shelf somewhere. So to learn more about problem curation, just either visit our website, www.bmnt.com, or again, shoot me an email, jroy@bmnt.com.
Is that we have 4 companies from the bot on our submission. If none of them fit our needs, how much time do we have to resubmit the problem set? I believe you said it was created for this event and it is not open-ended.
Yeah, so it's a great question. The bot will not run into perpetuity because it was intended just for this event, but we are going to keep it live for a bit. And so please do try and resubmit. If you've looked at all 4 companies and truly none were a fit, one, we'd love to get that feedback. So either email us or text that help number that we put out earlier. But try again, and using some of the tips that Mike used earlier, or Mike put out earlier, more context around the problem, try different keywords, try to be more descriptive, and hopefully we can return a more accurate search. But if people are getting false matches or really bad matches, we want to know that. So please don't be shy.
Can you give an example of user input vis-a-vis flyer bot?
Yeah, Mike, do you want to take that one and kind of walk them through the questions again?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first question is, we obviously ask you for your contact info so we can make sure we return you useful results. But the first question is really about the problem that you're facing. What is the problem you're trying to solve for your organization? After that, we ask you to kind of presuppose or kind of guess at what type of solution you're looking for. And this helps us actually understand a little bit more about the problem as well. But it's just trying to make sure that we're returning the types of companies you're looking to see. If you've got a problem that we think, maybe it sounds like it's a software problem, but you actually really only care about the hardware side of it, tell us you're looking for hardware solutions, right? And we'll make sure that'll basically key the bot to focus in on that hardware side. After that, we're going to ask you how you think your solution is like if you had that solution, how would it actually solve your problem? And again, this is just another way to get you to talk a little bit more about your problem from a different perspective, maybe describe it a little bit more to us, which is, again, going to give the bot some more language to key off of and to try to, filter down and find specifically the right companies for you. And the last one is to understand, we're gonna ask you to tell us what types of people, what are the roles associated with this problem? Who are the types of people that feel the pain of this problem because it's not being solved? And again, we ask that because it's a very good delimiter. It's a very good way to identify a subset of a problem, right? It tells us a little bit more specifically about how that problem is manifesting itself. And we've asked the same question of the companies to tell us what types of people use or interact with their products. So again, another great way for us to make sure we're matching up the right type of products with the types of problems out there. Those are the 4 questions.
I think that's all the questions that we have right now. Unless anyone else wants to submit a couple more questions. I know that we have about 10 minutes left for this session.
Mike, what was the hardest part about sort of figuring out how to match what was coming in with the data that we had? Is there any specific part that was sort of a harder hurdle than others? Or maybe what was the most important thing to ensure?
I mean, what we found pretty quickly is that the problem, the the description of the problem, or the answer to the first question, tends to be the most useful information for making the match. So again, we kind of like turned up the significance of that on the bot. I think sometimes there's there are problems that come in where there really aren't any great fits, for the problem, or if the problem is really vague, there's a lot of like okay fits. The cybersecurity is a really good example. I could give you 20 companies, and I'm gonna, the bot says here's 20 companies, and I'm gonna kind of pick a few and send them to you. But if there's not a good fit, there was an example of one that was looking for how to do like expensing travel and all the other sorts of expenses out there. There just isn't, as far as I could find, and the bot couldn't find, there wasn't a really good company out there within this data set, within this SBIR awardees for this time frame that really fit that. And that sometimes that just happens, right? Like we don't have the whole world. For that one specifically, Expensify is great, right? But we're not here to recommend a solution from the entire world, right? It's just from this data set. So that's sometimes it's difficult when the bot is kind of like, I don't really know, or there's such a little amount of data that it can't really get good matches, right? Because even if a human looked at every solution and looked at the problem text, they probably wouldn't be able to find a good match either, because it's just kind of vague.
Yeah, thanks. That makes a lot of sense. How many records do you think it took to start returning good results?
Like how many companies?
Sure. Well, we started with 150.
We only really did 2 tests. So we had 150 companies when we first started this, and then Tony put out that solicitation for basically the rest, which got us to, like I said, I think it's like 350 or 400. And I'll say, I'll be honest with you, there was a pretty good uptick in the number of accurate companies we could return, as you would expect, right? We just had a lot more companies that had more niche sort of offerings. So it allowed us to return some more specific companies that looked really tight, really closely paired to the problem. The first testing that we did some internal testing, and with Tony's team, there was just not nearly as many companies to pull from. So, and then also Tony did some tweaking of the questionnaire that he sent out to the companies, again, pulling more descriptions, more detail on what the companies provide, which again, just allows us to pick more accurate companies for a given problem. So both of those tweaks has made a difference, an uptick in the accuracy. But Jen, like you referenced earlier, that's my perspective. I'd love to hear feedback as to how good our matches are, right? Like I can read your question and go, man, this company looks awesome, right? Like I agree with the bot totally. But I'd love to hear from you guys if your matches were good or bad. And just a simple thumbs up, thumbs down. You can send it to that backup number, or you can even send it back to the chat bot and just say like, hey, good matches, or the matches were, thumbs down, no good. However you want to get that to us, you can email it to Jen. She loves getting emails.
That's my favorite. I promise to get back to all of you. There's a lot of conferences being canceled. I saw today the NHL actually just canceled the rest of its season. The NBA is canceling. A lot of conferences are getting canceled. So if you were to build this for another conference, right? What are the ingredients for success? What data sets in what time frame would you need to replicate this for the next government customer?
Yeah, it would be, being a part of the whatever, when they outreach to companies and say, hey, you want to attend this conference, you got to answer these questions about yourself, or register here. I'd want to be a part of that process so that we could get our questions inserted. And understanding what that conference is trying to accomplish, we'll customize our questions so that we can more accurately drive to that outcome. But just being a part of that original process, so that when every company goes to register, they all answer the same questions, we get the same level of detail, and each one of those companies knows why it's important to spend the time to get us some good descriptions of what they have. And on the other side, just again, customizing the questions that we would ask the problem owners, and what the delivery mechanism is, right? For some groups, SMS is a really good, text messaging is a really good medium, and in other groups it might not be. If everybody's attending a conference virtually from a skiff and they're on their black lines on the unclassed terminals, we're gonna have to change the medium. Not a problem, but we'll just have to make sure that we can, everybody can get to all the different resources. And also, does it need to be real time, or is it going to be sort of thing where we want everyone to submit their problems ahead of time? and we do all the matching. Well, sorry, we deliver all the matches, during the event or something. All these are kind of variables, but it really starts with knowing the companies they're going to be attending and getting good quality problems from, or the descriptions of their products. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think this is something that increasingly will be in high demand. I hope you're ready for a lot of work.
I'm excited. I think, Jen, the other thing that's there is, there's the potential for us to help people craft their problem statements a little bit better, right? So there's potential that when the solicitation goes out for attendees, to include some material that says, hey, we're going to be doing this bot. We're going to be asking you to tell us about your problem so we can match you, and here's some best practices, right? And kind of build that in to help folks. Like people are kind of asking, how can I get a better match? Well, like increasing the quality of your problem, and we can help with some best practices and other little tips and tricks and examples to help them get the best matches possible.
Okay. And I think we have time for one last question. Can something like this be tied to the ideation platform SPIR campaign?
So the answer is yes, right? Like we'll figure it out. But that's a question really for AFWERX. So, it's certainly something that we would want to talk to our AFWERX sponsors about. But, we would be excited to try and marry this capability up in any way that it can be useful for our government customers. Yeah, no, thanks to AFWERX for all you guys have pulled off. This was an amazing first go out of the gate. So thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you.